y'all, this is RSOPerator from RadicalSurvivalism.com, and today I want to show you our M1009 CUCV.
As a prepper family, we realized that there were options to weigh in choosing an ideal vehicle for our specific needs. We wanted something to serve in the role of support vehicle for our RV. We also wanted something that would serve as a farm truck. But we chose the M1009 specifically because we wanted to be sure we had something in the driveway that was hardened against EMP should that scenario ever occur. That specific requirement rules out nearly all modern civilian trucks, since all modern vehicle systems are dominated by a computer control, and computer components that aren't hardened don't get along with EMP. We initially started our search for a vehicle by looking at an M1008, which is the pickup truck version of the CUCV. Unfortunately, the truck we found was too rusted to even consider, so we continued our search and finally we stumbled upon the M1009, which is the Chevy K5 Blazer within the CUCV family. Now the M1009 does have a shorter bed than the M1008, but it is fully enclosed, and I think for us that's a good trade-off because in harsh weather, one or more people could actually bed down in the rear and escape the elements. The cargo space in the M1009 looks like this. You can fit 4 typical square bales of hay or straw in the back with just enough room for about 4 50-pound bags of feed. Transporting lumber in the M1009 is interesting in that you usually have to slide your longer boards forward between the 2 front seats to minimize the length left sticking out of the rear of the truck. With the beefed up 3/4 ton suspension and a rear bench seat that folds forward, the M1009 can haul a full load of firewood stacked all the way up to the truck cap. The CUCVs were manufactured in 1984, 1985, and 1986. Although the parts used to build the CUCVs didn't change throughout that 3-year production cycle, the civilian K5 Blazer experienced some changes and updates. So no matter what year of CUCV you own, you're going to want to order parts for the 1984 K5 Blazer, otherwise you may wind up with parts that do not fit the CUCV.
So this is a 30-year-old truck, and we definitely had to replace some parts. What we've tried to do is be careful and try to keep the parts as stock as possible, and that we don't want to do too much in terms of modifications. I have made a couple modifications, but these were things that shouldn't affect the ability to rob parts from another similar vehicle and swap them in. One of the modifications I've done is the dog head relay mod, which is, if you're familiar with Steel Soldiers, it's a website, online website. There are details there as to how to do this particular modification, and it involves not allowing the starter to engage, lock, and overheat. The dog head relay prevents that from happening. One of the other mods that I've done is replace the stock Wellman glow plugs with a better grade of plug. It's an AC Delco plug. Reason being the Wellman glow plugs in the block tend to age and swell up, and they're really hard to get out of the engine block after they've swelled. It involves a pair of needle nose pliers and a lot of grinding. We even, with one of the glow plugs, had to insert a Dremel tool with a very small bit and grind the plug down to even get it out of the block. That's not good maintenance practice, so we upgraded to the better AC Delco plugs, and I actually switched the circuit that powers those plugs from the stock 24 volts to 12 volts, which is it's going to allow the newer plugs to last a little longer, even though it takes them maybe a little longer to glow. But replacing those AC Delco plugs is real easy, and then they just twist right out, put new plugs in, and you're good to go. Alright, this is the dash of your typical M1009. What you'll see that is different here, if you're familiar, is this panel normally is blank, because that's in the civilian vehicle, in the civilian Chevy, that's where the stereo goes. So what I've done is I've done some modifications to the glow plug system. and installed some switches and lights here that allow me a little bit more control and some feedback from what's going on actually under the hood. I will zoom in a little closer, and what I've done is added some, it's pretty basic electrical wiring to provide for an emergency cutoff switch to power the glow plugs. The reason being is I had one incident where the circuit card that controls the glow plugs locked on and stayed on, and my glow plugs heated and heated and heated sitting in a parking lot. They smelled really weird, and I burned up all my glow plugs. Glow plugs are like 10 bucks a piece. There's 8 of them. That's not fun to replace in any situation, so my resolution was to not only replace those all burned up glow plugs, but I actually put in this cool little circuit that allows me some feedback. When the glow plugs are actually heating, the light above the switch that says active, that's labeled active, actually glows. So I know exactly when the glow plugs are lit and when they're not. If I feel like something's gone wrong and they're staying lit too long, I can just flip the emergency disable switch below that active light, and it kills the power to all the glow plugs. And that allows me to keep things under control until I can get to some maintenance. This is really cool. It's really not a difficult mod. I may be able to come up with a wiring diagram that shows what I did. Maybe I'm able to post it along with the video in some fashion for anybody out there who'd be interested in it. It does work 100%. Alright, the other switch that you see here on the right of the panel is labeled accessories. It's just an accessories on and off switch that powers the cigarette lighter here in the ashtray in the center of the vehicle, and that connector powers a splitter which allows me to charge a cell phone, power the CB here in the truck, and also power up the GPS that I have here, which is pretty old. Okay, one of the other minor mods that I've done here is added this 1200 watt power converter to the floorboard in the passenger side front, where the nuclear biological detecting equipment initially was installed. When we bought the truck, that equipment was actually not in here. As civilians, we wouldn't have access to that, but the bracket was still there, so I basically just pulled up the bracket and dropped in this 1200 watt power converter. So no matter where I go, if I'm out in the woods or whatnot cutting firewood, I have access to up to 1200 watts of AC power. Behind the passenger side rear seat is a mount for your spare tire. It's pretty easy to remove it and get to it. I also have an axe back there and some giant pair of cable cutters. Very cool equipment to have around in a prepper vehicle. And here in the ceiling between the two front seats, I've added an RV style overhead light because this particular CUCV didn't have any above head light, any interior lighting at all. And I do a lot of stuff after sundown, so this is a really quick, easy mod, bringing 12 volts of power back here to a switched overhead light, painted it green. It matches the truck. Very fast mod, and now I have some interior light whenever I want it. That was about 3 years ago. I repainted our truck. It came in a very faded 3-color NATO camo paint scheme. The problem with that is it was extremely faded to the point where it was almost entirely green. There was barely any camo there, and once in a while we really wanted to take the truck through some parades and stuff and have a little bit of fun with it too. So I just decided to get rid of that very toxic paint that the military uses, the CARC paint, C-A-R-C. Pretty toxic stuff, very dangerous stuff. So I found some matching colors through a company online and went to convinced sanding and priming, and it was about 3 years ago I completely redid the 3-color camo. This is not an expertise of mine. I'm very much a novice in terms of painting vehicles. But this was a driveway rattle can paint job. It turned out pretty good. You can tell it's starting to fade again, but for as little as I had invested in putting the 3-color camo back on the truck and doing all the stencils and everything, I spent very little on it. A little bit of filler, some sanding discs, paint, primer. Not a big deal. I did it over the course of several days, and it turned out pretty well. We're just getting to the point now where the rockers below the doors are starting to, the rust is starting to come through on those. I was able to really get the rust under control everywhere else because it was pretty minor. This truck was really not that rusty, but those rockers on these CUCVs, the salt gets to them from the winters and just eats the rockers all up. And we're at the point now where I'm going to have to look at cutting those rockers out and replacing them, because there's nothing left there for the to grab for the paint or the filler to even grab a hold of if I was to try it again. The truck cap was very badly damaged by the sun. There was a lot of the white fiberglass showing. It just basically involved digging in and sanding all that rough fiberglass down smooth again and priming and painting. The scheme I put on is actually pretty accurate in terms of the drawings that I had from the military that they used to paint these vehicles and repaint them. The M1009, just like all the other CUCVs, comes with a pintle. So if you want to pull the military trailer, I believe it's like the M1001, if my memory serves. If you get a hold of one of those trailers, you can hook it right up. Or if you decide you want to pull a howitzer, you can do it. Alright, so the video won't be complete unless we start her up. So we're going to glow the plugs. And with the new starter and the new injector pump, or at least fairly new, I'll show you exactly how fast our CUCV, how fast and easy our CUCV starts up. So there you go. Alright, so one thing to remember in driving these as a civilian, you basically have a service light kill switch, which when it's not engaged, you can very easily just drive down the road and not have any lights on this vehicle at all. That's a pretty dangerous situation. So one of the first things that you learn when you buy one of these CUCVs is that when you get in it and start it up, you make sure your service lights are on before you go down the road, and that prevents any police entanglements. So there's probably one other thing I should mention. If you're interested in getting your hands on one of these CUCVs, the first time you drive it down the road, we were lucky in that the gentleman that we purchased this from, who purchased it from the military, warned me when you head down the road with this. He reminded me that, you know, it's flat green. It was somewhat camouflaged. People aren't looking for flat green camouflage trucks when they arrive at an intersection. Typically, it's just something that not a lot of people are programmed to see. So his warning was just make sure when you're getting used to driving this, drive with your lights on. Take a little extra time at the stoplights and intersections, and kind of make sure that people see you, because I mean, when it's green outside, when it's spring, summer, early fall, and things are green, this truck is really hard to see. It's sitting in the driveway and coming down the road in another vehicle and looking at it. It blends with the background so well that it would be really easy to just completely miss it, sitting in an intersection and just pull out, and then here, you know, somebody comes along driving one of these and just you end up in a major accident just because you just can't see it. Several years ago, when we purchased this truck, at the time the government they were liquidating these CUCVs. They were getting them off their military bases. They just didn't need them anymore. They didn't want them anymore. There were too many of them in storage. They were incredibly cheap to get a hold of. I think that's why it was around 2013, 2014. There were so many of them that went out so fast and ended up on the road because even with 39,000 miles on this truck, it's basically a fairly new truck that just sat for many, many years. They were insanely affordable. Really cool, rugged piece of equipment to pick up for a really good price if you're interested in, what it has to offer. If you're a prepper or you're running a small farm, doing the homesteading thing, I can't think of a better option if you want to do your own maintenance on a vehicle, which means you want to probably go with something a little older. If you want something that the parts really aren't all that expensive, if you want something that's not incredibly difficult to work on, that doesn't have so many bells and whistles that you need you need special tools to get to odds and ends under the hood, where typical tools you just can't get to the stuff. Under the hood here, lots of room to work, real easy to work on. The military manuals, the basic and intermediate manuals for these, tell you bolt by bolt, spring by spring, part by part, how to do most of the repairs you're going to run into anyway. If you're able to get a hold of those manuals, you just open them up when you have a problem and you're able to diagnose it. It'll tell you everything you need to know to get the repair done. That's very cool. So the initial cost, great in terms of buying one of these. Cost for parts, pretty good. Parts aren't real expensive. Durable, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many cars and trucks I've pulled out of ditches in snowstorms without even spinning the tires on this thing, where they couldn't even go down the road. We go out in snowstorms in this just for something to do, because this truck is extremely hard to get stuck. The four-wheel drive is awesome in it, even with the typical tires that the typical tires that the military ran on these trucks. It's just about impossible to get stuck here in the Michiana area where we live. I can't remember once ever getting it stuck. So what are the cons if you're looking for a prepper vehicle or a homesteading vehicle or a small farm truck to get work done? Not much. They don't have carpet. They don't have air conditioning. It basically boils down to that. If you can live with those two things and you want something that's rugged, if you want something that's actually made of metal and is not a metal frame with a plastic shell over it, this might be exactly what you're looking for. I'm definitely glad we purchased this truck, and to be honest with you, I've had a lot of vehicles in my past, most of them being sportier American cars. Of all the vehicles that I've owned, I've probably bonded most with this truck, believe that or not, because I'm able to roll my sleeves up, get under the hood, get the work done. I know it's done right because I'm doing it. I have the manuals to go to if I'm not sure about finishing a particular repair and finishing it properly. There's a whole network of people online in terms of steel soldiers, the website dedicated to owning military vehicles as civilians. What a cool network, and anything that I've ever seen that could possibly go wrong in terms of repairs on these M1009s, on these CUCVs, there's an answer there.
Well, that's all for this video. If you found this helpful and want to see more, check out our YouTube channel or visit our Facebook page. Our website is radicalsurvivalism.com. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm at twitter.com/radsurvival. We'll see you next time.